Are you ready to lime? We're liming, and this is a really special edition of Liming with Monique. I'll be joined by my husband, Luis, and our really good friend, stellar Caribbean businesswoman, Abby Charles. We'll be liming, chatting, talking, reflecting about life, family, fun, business, and everything under the sun. This is real Caribbean style fun. Join me on Liming with Monique on Carib Nation TV. Hello and welcome to Liming with Monique on Carib Nation TV. My name is Monique Marie McSween, and today I'll be joined by my husband, Luis McSween, and our very good friend, stellar businesswoman, Abby Charles. This is a special edition of The Lime. Abby will be asking us questions about marriage, life, family, fun, business, what we love, and everything under the sun.
All right. So, Monique, Luis, we liming tonight. Are you all ready to lime?
We're ready to lime.
Anytime with you, Abby. Yeah.
Let me tell you, it is such an honor to have the opportunity to chat with you both. I see you all over town. I'm seeing you all over social media, hosting events, just being present, popping up with your pop-up shops, hosting travel trips now. I am so excited to be able to have this conversation, to dig into your lives and to get to know a little bit more about the history of your business, what has kicked you into gear and gotten you moving in this way in the Caribbean community in DC, and then to hear a little bit about your values and what drives you. So to start, Monique, Luis, tell me a little bit about Caribeat. What got you all into this, and just a little bit of the history.
Sure. Well, Abby, thank you so much for this lime. We very rarely need an excuse to lime, right? As Chinese and as Caribbean people. So we're really happy to be here. And thanks so much for the time to lime today. Caribeat is a Caribbean lifestyle company, and the company is comprised of 5 divisions. And as you said, I know people see us at Union Market in a pop-up shop with Caribeat cuisine. Then they see our sauces on the shelves, our rum punch and our rum biscuits at parties. Then they see us heading to Cuba.
And everywhere.
So everybody's wondering, what exactly is Caribeat? So I'm happy that we're starting with this question. Caribeat is a Caribbean lifestyle company. We consider ourselves to be ambassadors for the Caribbean region because we just feel so passionately about all things Caribbean. And our mission is to elevate the Caribbean in every corner of the earth. As I mentioned earlier, we have 5 divisions. We have a travel division, a cuisine, or what we call a culinary division, where we have catering, and you see us with our pop-up Caribbean cuisine in Washington, D.C. and various festivals. We have a fast-moving consumer goods division, and that is comprised of, what we call here or refer to here in the U.S. as pantry items. So hot sauce, salsas, guava barbecue sauce, tamarind mango wing sauce, our rum-based beverages. I know you experience
those are my favorites. Let me be honest. I like the sauces. The flavors are good.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. That means the world to us. Our tiki biscuits and rum biscuits, which are hibiscus beverages. We have an apparel division, which is really where our Real Happy Vibes lime or Real Happy Vibes brand, which is a trademark that we own. That's where that started. And that's all about people wearing shirts and other apparel that spreads real happy vibes, right? That's the messaging. And then we have our Caribeat travel division. And that is where we provide what we call exclusive private travel experiences. It's not the average bus tour. We want to make sure our customers know that. It is a real culinary cultural experience where people from all over the world, not just here in the US, can experience firsthand the cuisine and culture of the region. We also have, I should add, Caribbean Home, which is our line of decor where through Luis's background in architecture and interior design, we seek to introduce and infuse Caribbean flair and flavor in homes. So, you know, we have a lot of customers who call us to do it. It's about his time. And we do it on a very select basis, that interior design division.
Y'all are a true Renaissance couple. Touching on everything, right? But I also heard there's some management in there too, right? Y'all are also managing different groups from the Caribbean to expose them internationally.
Thank you for that. I should have mentioned Caribbean music. How could I forget? That's the biggest of them all. We are the exclusive agents for BP Renegade Steel Orchestra in the US and Canada. So yes, and that is an integral part of the culture and how we seek to elevate the culture of the Caribbean.
Yes. What I love about the work that you all are doing and what I see is how much you are building community.
Yes.
So you're sitting in your house one day, because I know y'all before Real Happy Vibes, right? I know y'all before the sources. I know y'all before the everything that y'all are involved
in. We go way back.
Way back. But you've always been connected to community, right? So you're sitting all at home. And how does this Real Happy Vibes brand come about, right? You're working hard every day. Yeah. How do you decide, okay, let me add to the hard work and add this other arm of building a brand and a business? What led you all to do that?
You know, Monique will elaborate, but you know, one of the things, you know, we obviously sit here, just for context, you know, as husband and wife, one of the key things of being partners in business, you know, we also can't lose sight of the fact that, you know, we're a couple and it's important to maintain, you know, our own space.
Mm-hmm.
As a
you have to be real intentional about that.
So, you know, yeah. But so it really, and I love Monique to elaborate on it, but, you know, the Real Happy Vibes, you know, they really came about as we reflected. Sometimes we sit here and we reflect on all of the things that are going on in the world, especially here in our own country, in our own communities. It's all centered on whether it's crime, serious business, obviously, unemployment, whatever the issues are today. And if you're not careful, you just sort of just get sucked into it. And before you know it, you're living your life really in a very negative sense, you know, if you will, right? There's no joy, well, within our families, you know. So we sit and we say, no, how can we really add some value, if you will, right? And at the same time, dealing with the seriousness of the issues of the day. And that was sort of the starting point for the whole Real Happy Vibe. Presenting it in a manner that people at the same time can appreciate that it's okay to be positive, even though it's really, you know, there are things and issues to deal with on a day basis. So that was sort of the driver for it.
Behind the Real Happy Vibes. You know, and I'm so happy you asked this question, Abby, because a lot of people look at Real Happy Vibes and they're like, you know, regardless of where they come from, Latin America, the Caribbean, Europe, wherever, the US, and they look at that and you automatically see the smiles. And we really believe that all human beings have a natural proclivity to be happy.
Yes.
But because we are tempted at times to succumb to circumstances, to, you know, kind of fall in line with what we see on TV with everybody being sad and upset, you know, we have to be really intentional about being happy. I also want to add that the genesis or the evolution of Real Happy Vibes, there's a marketing part of it for the Caribbean, but there's also a very personal part of it. I myself, you know, witnessed a family member very close to me who succumbed to Alzheimer's and the associated depression and so that comes with that. And I always remember that she regardless, she may not even be able to remember your name, but she could always smile and laugh, right? And I always remember that. And I said to myself that I am going to take that with me, that it is always, regardless of what is going on, nobody can take away from you that God-given gift to smile and be happy. If we take that now and look at it from a more regional perspective, when we look at the unique value proposition of the Caribbean, right? What is that one thing, Abby, that people know the Caribbean for?
Yeah.
It's the place where you go to be happy. When you meet people up or they hear your accent, you very rarely hear people say, yeah, I just came from Trinidad. It's always, yeah, I was just in Trinidad. Why did we have a time?
Yes.
Or I was in Barbados, or I was in Jamaica, or I was in Antigua, or I was in St. Lucia. Whenever you encounter someone who visited the Caribbean, there's one thing that they remember. It's our real happy vibes.
Yeah.
And so we decided to take that and elevate that unique value proposition for the region.
Awesome. So, I was reading the other day about someone who had this life-threatening disease, this diagnosis that, whatever percentage of people tend to pass away from this disease. And, whether true or not, the story is that this person healed themselves through laughter and then became a professor at a university, at a school of medicine without a medical degree, about the value of joy, laughter, and happiness, right? So Real Happy Vibes is bringing so much of that energy of healing, right? Through food, through culinary arts, through culinary experiences, through sharing the Caribbean, through sharing that joy. It's been, so good to hear that background and that story. It connects you and roots you.
Yeah. Food. Oh, I'm sorry about that. Yeah.
No, you're good.
No, I was thinking you just mentioned food, for example, right? That, if you reflect upon, our growing up, the kitchen was really and continues to be one of the favorite places to just hang out.
To lime.
Yeah.
To lime, to heal, to do everything.
Everything, right? You can have a formal living room, formal dining room, and everyone just gravitates. Right? So food is another component that, people just absolutely, it brings about, regardless. You may even hear discussions as to who cooks it better or whatever the case is, but at the end of the day, everybody's just laughing, having a good old time, eating some good food, having some drinks. And, so we take all of those moments, we said, if we're not careful, you just sort of forget about it and leave it behind. And so we really attempt
take it with you.
If we introduce it and say, hey, listen, it's okay in these bad times to, at the same time,
to be happy.
Just to be happy. And,
definitely.
And I obviously I'm no expert in that field, but I show you at some point it does add something to that lifestyle and life of yours and health, actually.
There's a science to happiness, and it sounds like y'all are tapping into that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So happiness, Real Happy Vibes, marriage and business, right? I hear so many stories about what marriage and business could look like. How do you balance marriage and business and not destroy the happiness?
Good, I can't stop laughing.
It's got
Because the amount of people ask that question, I'm laughing because I knew the question was coming.
I know, but it's a great question, I think, right? But it's one that we love to actually even talk about. And Monique is correct. A lot of people do ask the question. They see us and they're probably wondering, they're probably just smiling and, what, right? But really, it's a delicate balance, and I'll allow Monique to elaborate also. But, for us, it's really recognizing our strengths. And we recognize what our weaknesses are. So for us, it's our optimal, for most people, it should be 100%. So if, for example, Monique was operating and she thinks that, it's 100%, she's correct. And I am at the same time, regardless of what our strengths or weaknesses are, we are who we are right? So what we do, we've approached it from day one, setting those egos aside and relying on our strengths. Mm-hmm. And if we're addressing a particular issue, and Monique has, 80% of it, she's got it going, right? And I bring with my little 20% bringing it up, that's the 100%. And we then proceed and we effect whatever needs to be done. So in a lot of ways, we've recognized that, and no one is pulling and tugging and fighting over it, and at the same time, we also know when it's time just to set it aside. Yeah. And if it means just taking a 3-day trip somewhere and just bumming around the beach, then we do that, So it's really, it can be a challenge, but, we are really in control of it because, we can, as I said, have extensive backgrounds in a lot of areas. I've traveled a lot, like you have. Monique has extremely great talents, and she's very good at what she does. And I recognize that, and I'm willing to say, hey, it's beautiful, and I'm happy that she's on my side.
That's your team.
Yeah, that's what team is about, really. And if you make up a team of all of the same skill sets, usually that's where you have your problems, where everyone is operating. So we understand, our strengths, we understand our weaknesses, and no one takes, ridicules the other. That's kind of.
Yeah. So Luis hit on everything there. I would say, Abby, and I couldn't help but laugh because we get this question almost every day, especially since the pandemic, when a lot of people kind of set a reset button or they press a reset button in terms of what life meant for them. So a lot of people have gone into entrepreneurship and business. A lot of people have gone into business with their partners. And they are now discovering, right, that this thing is not what you see on TV.
It's not that easy.
It's not. And we approach this like we approach everything else. You have to have a strategy and a structure for success. Oh, wow. Success is always intentional. And, people look at us and they're like, oh, where did you guys come from? We're not hearing about you guys. You guys are an overnight success. There's no such thing as an overnight success. No. What you are seeing is what we have been building since 2007. Right. So you are seeing the rewards of that. And similarly with our marriage, right? We got married in 2006. And so what you are seeing all these years later is through a lot of years of understanding and time and patience and dedication and listening to each other and deciding how do we want to live life in this marriage and how do we want to treat with each other in this marriage so that we can succeed. I'll also say, Abby, that speaking about strategy and a structure for success, that you have to, and this is for all couples who are in marriage and business together or thinking about going into business with their spouse, is that you have to learn the art of compartmentalization.
That's exactly what I was just going to ask you about. Where do you find that balance between business and marriage?
Yes, I had a mentor when I worked at the office of the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, and he said to me one morning, he said, you have to learn to slice your bread very carefully, right? So you have to slice that bread. And so, because if you don't do that, the marriage becomes the business and the business becomes the marriage.
Right.
So now when the average human being leaves the office and they say, I'll just leave the office and when I get home, I'll talk to my husband or I'll talk to my wife. Remember, we are seeing each other all day, right? Except if we are in meetings or traveling or whatever. So it is very tempting that you're talking about business for breakfast, business for lunch, business for dinner. You go for cocktails, you're talking about business. On the way from church, you're talking about business. On the way to church, you're talking about business.
You can't.
Yes, it can get very daunting. So we compartmentalize and we intentionally set aside that time to say, this is it. We are checking out. We can't check out totally, right? Because we are the business. So, but we decide for these 3 hours, for these 10 minutes, for these next 3 days, It's about us. And I'll give you share another piece of advice. When I worked for Prime Minister Patrick Manning, the week before we got married, he used to call me Monique. He said, Monique, listen, you have to set aside 15 minutes to even an hour once a week just to communicate. He said you could talk about the price of a can of peas and carrots, the price of gas. You could talk about what you're wearing to church. You could talk about whatever. But you have to set aside that time to communicate. And, you know, we were even approached by someone who said we would love for us to start doing marriage counseling. And we were like, what?
Yeah.
But it's about the communication. We communicate to the point where we almost over communicate, that we make sure that we know what's going on here and what's going on in our hearts at all times.
Yeah, so there's no assumptions to be made when you're...
Yes, yeah. No, we make mistakes, we fall out, we have disagreements like everybody else. That's human beings, right? We don't agree on everything. But there's one baseline, one common denominator, which is that we in this thing together to stay. So once you start off there, everything else after that is gravy.
Wonderful.
Compartmentalizing is important, you know, so you just don't allow certain things also to enter. You know, I tell Monique all the time, I got my soca part over here. I have
He's really good at that.
Business piece here. So I don't allow a lot of sort of static, a lot of noise. Because at the same time, you know.
And when he's watching soccer and cricket, that's it. Let me tell you something. The world could be going on outside.
Nothing is getting in. I know what that experience is like. Trust me. Full conversation going on, and that TV is everything.
You know, otherwise, you know, you just dealing with the same thing. Just sort of like the old folks used to say growing up, it's like spinning top in mud, you know. So you just have to, and you know, it's not easy, to be very honest. But you know, the key thing is that once you're centered, if you will, on spirituality and trust and really and love, really, because like Monique said at the outset, you know, I think people genuinely just want, you know, good people, you know. I mean, we have our issues and challenges here and there, but generally speaking, you know, people really mean well. People want to do well, and so we also at the same time, you know, talking about other things that we discussed with Caribbean, we also get very involved, you know, in charity, you know. So we do a lot of work with children, you know, in underdeveloped areas. In attempting to develop them because they may not have had the same opportunities that we've had. So it's reaching out, you know, to lend a helping hand.
It goes back to the community you spoke about, very important. And, you know, you asked us about values. So community is important to us. We have Caribbean Giving, where 10% of our profits go to the Caribbean Disaster and Recovery, Disaster Relief and Recovery Alliance.
Awesome.
We also support Open International, which has a school and an orphanage in Senegal. Because, you know, we believe we all came from the West Coast of Africa.
All of us.
There too. And God. And really, we have to start with God as we speak about that anchor, that rock. Is prayer is at the root of everything that we do. We have a financial advisor. Whenever we say, Sean, should we do this or should we do that? He says, calm down. 2 questions. Did you pray about it? And we say, yes, we prayed about it. Okay, let me see the mark. Because he says 2 things don't like, God and arithmetic. Right? So we have to tell him we pray about it and then we check the numbers.
Let's do the numbers next. So, you know, you talked about having a financial advisor, you know, in business, especially as you have 5 arms to carry beat, which is a lot.
Yeah.
What are some of the lessons that you've learned as you've been building all of these different aspects to this umbrella organization? What are your top 3 lessons learned?
Excellent question. Number 1 lesson or recommendation is, and I always hear people talk about, you know, how many businesses start and then fail. Or people say, you know, I'm going to make cookies and then they fail. the number one lesson is, and this is actually my aunt, who came from my aunt, who was a very successful businesswoman. And she said to me when I was a child, she had a clothing factory.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, child, you must never, she said, one day you're going to open a business. Because we both come from a very long line of business people, right? It's everywhere in our family. And she said to me, you must never stock your boutique. If one day you open a clothing store, never stock your boutique with clothes that you like.
Mm-hmm.
And it is years later that I realized that a lot of times people start businesses because an aunt or a cousin or an uncle or a brother or sister said, you know what? You really make good cookies. So you need to start mass producing these cookies, make 1,000, and we're going to sell all of them.
Mm-hmm.
So the number one lesson is that you have to have a business case.
Right.
You have to understand and know for a fact that you can turn a certain amount of units that will keep this business not only profitable but also sustainable.
Mm-hmm.
You know the dynamics of marketing, right? On a product life cycle. When you first launch a product, your sales are through the roof. A lot of times it's because people are curious about your product. It's new, it's the novelty. They buy. And then one morning you get up and your sales have taken a nosedive.
Totally.
And that's because the novelty has worn off.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to make sure that you have a sustainable business case. Start incrementally. If you make cookies, make 10 cookies. Yeah. All 10 sell. All right, let's start with 20. You get in one store, okay, people buying it. You go down the street, you go to the next store, people buying it. Then you realize that you have a large enough market to sell this product sustainably over a period of time.
Mm-hmm.
Second, I would recommend, and then I'll hand it over to Luis because I know he has his own thoughts as well, is agility.
Mm-hmm.
The reason we have 5 arms of business, one of the reasons is because we don't put all of our eggs in one basket, right?
Never, especially in this economy. Like, it's just like...
I remember when I worked for the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, we always spoke about economic diversification.
Mm-hmm.
To diversify your income streams.
Yeah.
So if one day one goes, whatever reason, there's something going on in the market, you can't source a raw material, then you have another area that you can turn to. So it's that agility that helps to keep the business sustainable. And so it's, having those 5 divisions is making sure that we round out the brand with all things that have Caribbean appeal and that our markets want in terms of our target audiences. But it is also about the agility that allows us to have various revenue streams from each area. You have anything you want to add?
That's pretty much it. But in addition, though, it's not just picking anything. It's all part of an overall plan. Mm-hmm. It's all about timing. So that's another thing that, that's very important, timing. Because, with a cookie example, for example, maybe the cookie is exceptional, it's excellent. But it's all about the timing of are you presenting or producing this.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So what we've learned is that not because you've been faced with and I usually refer to it as a speed bump. It doesn't mean that you just scrap the whole idea.
Correct.
But if you have an overall plan, the cookies part of it is another piece over here, and you may want to just go ahead and start, implementing, putting this one right here on hold. Doesn't mean you're just sort of, abandoning that whole idea. So timing is one of the key components that comes out of this whole process,
right,
where it may not be the right time, but you must be able to recognize that it's not. So a lot of times, the speed bumps is presented and we scrap the idea, right? Whereas all the lesson in that is that it's just saying, hey, slow up, negotiate the speed bump, figure out what the issues are, and then, once again, you may be able to hit highway.
Correct.
So that's usually it doesn't matter what the endeavor. A lot of times we start, like Monique said earlier, about the aunts and the uncles and the siblings, everybody's loving it. And then all of a sudden, it went from selling 1,000 and the numbers start going down. It doesn't mean that the product is bad. They just haven't done a good job of putting together a good business plan.
Yeah.
Right.
But it's still a very viable option.
I think in addition to the timing is because you spoke about staying with it, so it's the perseverance and the discipline and commitment. So you asked about three things. So we spoke about agility, right? We spoke about the timing and the perseverance that goes along with the commitment and the dedication. I also want to say, Abby, that when you decide to go into a business, we say it every day, business people are like no other. And I know scientists have their role and teachers have their role and lawyers have their role, but without business people, the world wouldn't run, right?
Would not, right.
We wouldn't be eating, we wouldn't be putting gas in our car, we wouldn't be wearing the clothes we wear, we would not be looking at this Zoom. Somebody came up with Zoom, somebody came up with this lighting fixture that we are using to make sure we're properly lit for our Zoom interview. My point is that there's a certain persona or personality you have to be cut out for business. And not everybody is cut out for business. So you really have to ask yourself, am I cut out for this? Do I have the perseverance? Am I risk averse or am I willing to take risks? Because that's stretching beyond your comfort zone and taking risks that the average human being would say, you did what?
Why are you spending all that money? Yes.
Why are you spending that? What do you think that would be a good idea? Right? You didn't sleep. You went to bed at what? At 4 o'clock in the morning and woke back up at 5:30 in the morning. These are some of the things that we do when the average person is like, I'm going to do my 9 to 5 and thank God it's Friday. We have no idea what thank God is Friday means. None. Right. Well, we thank God for every day. So we have thank God is Monday, thank God is Tuesday, thank God is Wednesday. It's really about the persona. Do you have that persona to run, to own a business and to stay with it, to make sure that this business succeeds?
Yeah. And when I think of you, I know you all have been catering for a long time. So, the carry beat that I'm seeing popping up at Union Market, that connects to something you all have been doing for a long time. As you talk about that, do you have the stick with it to see it to fruition in the long term? Is I've seen it in you both.
Yes.
Yes. We started off with really the catering business, and we did quite a few catering events with the diplomatic corps.
Right.
So that's how we started, really, and that then eventually evolved into people always asking us about not just the food itself, but our sources.
Yes.
And people would ask, what the source is and how much they enjoyed it and they loved it. So we started now, I call it designing, because I always tell folks, they say, well, how you come about the flavoring and all of that. And I really go back to our upbringing in Trinidad specifically. I've been, I also have a, South American heritage in me, because I was actually born in Venezuela, Trinidadian parents. But living in Trinidad, for us, when you look at the diversity, as it relates to the ethnicity within our country, our beautiful country, and each one bringing its own taste, if you will, its own food, flavoring, and so forth. So you have from the East Indian to the Afro Trinidadian to the Portuguese influence, the Spanish influence. So you have all of that. And at the same time, when you look at it as a whole, it's really a fun group. Though, yes, we have a challenge in our issues, but no one can, like the old song says, no one can party like us, right? No one can hug and features.
The unity.
Get the unity of it all.
People, right?
Yeah.
Desmond Tutu said we are rainbow people.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and that was really one of the drivers for me as I developed my recipes throughout, was how can I take, really, it's complex, because there are all these different groups, right? Mend that into one particular item, if you will. So that took a lot of trial and error. So in some cases, I may have several influences within a particular product.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a balancing of it to make it something I hope that people continue to enjoy. So the food has always been there and continues to be. Now we're in the process of obviously commercializing, so we're going to be on shelves throughout the region, I hope, and throughout the US. So that's where we're at with the food piece of it.
Right.
We have some great dishes in the whole region. It's not just Trinidad, you have Jamaica, you have each Barbados, Antigua, everyone has their own quality, if you will. Make it slightly different, but it doesn't necessarily mean one's better than the other.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
And we also have to balance our thinking and our design of these recipes. Because, folks, from the islands, we always know someone that makes it better.
We're one Caribbean, but they still have a little bit of competition in the family.
Yeah, a lot of competition.
Right.
We still love each other. We still have one love on one Caribbean and one region. But Luis is saying something that as we go back to the discussion about the lessons of business, it reminded me about, and he spoke about the process of developing recipes and kind of merging and bringing together and synthesizing all of those cultural and culinary influences into one bottle. It's the importance of protecting your intellectual property.
So important.
Yes. When people think about intellectual property, they think about music and literary work and art. But in cuisine, and particularly in the development of culinary products, and even in other aspects of our business, we do not cut corners in terms of how we protect our intellectual property. Awesome. And you hear about a lot of business people. I had a recipe and then one day I woke up and I saw it in the supermarket on a shelf and I remember I shared it with somebody. No, you have to put first things first in terms of protecting your intellectual property. So our recipes, we always say we got them like the pin for our ATM card, right?
Well, you learned that from KFC and from other enterprises. You never see that recipe.
Never.
You never see that recipe.
Never.
So you have to take lessons from the business people who've been successful throughout history.
Abby, it's one of the reasons too, kind of transitioning from the food to the music, why we felt so strongly about steel pan music.
Yes.
Because this is our gift to the world, right? The instrument was born in the heart of Laventille, the only acoustic instrument born in the 21st century. And it's being produced around the world. It's being mass produced, right? In certain countries around the world. And the question is, what have we done to protect the business of steel pan? So that as we talk about the diversification of the economy of Trinidad and Tobago and the region, and we give our artists the best possible opportunity that they can have for global success and making steel pan mainstream music that you could turn on any radio and hear. It's about how do we protect that intellectual property. So we don't have all the answers, but we decided we had to make our contribution to make sure that we protect and uplift and elevate steel pan to where it needs to be.
So phenomenal. Gosh, I'm sitting here listening to all of these different endeavors and really wondering, how do you stretch yourselves so far to do all of that? Do you do it all yourselves? Or, when you are on your Caribbean cuisine trips, who is doing the sauces? How do you balance and find the time to do all of those pieces? And I guess that's a business tip as well. How do you balance that?
Great question. I had the good fortune of teaching at the University of the West Indies and at Prince George's Community College. And one of the modules that I very often at the start of a course speak to my students is about how they manage time, and a time management module. And what we recommend is that you, and Luis can speak about this better than me because he managed cruise scheduling for one of America's largest airlines. So he knows about scheduling time, right? Is about, we deal with things in blocks of time.
Got it.
Blocks of time. So if we're doing phone calls, we do meetings, one of the things that we very often advise business people is don't stretch yourself with, you have meetings in the morning, meetings in the afternoon, meetings for lunch. We have a half day of meetings and that's it. That's meeting time. Then we set aside a very specific time for returning messages and voicemail and text messages, phone calls, email, that kind of thing. We set aside a very specific period of time for brainstorming and for idea conceptualization.
Awesome.
And we also make maximum use of contract, right? So whereas, a lot of people are like, how do you do all that? We bring on contract employees to deal and project manage for very specific projects. And then at the end of that project, that's it. They come back on board for the next project. And that also helps us to manage financially because, if you're not careful, you spend all your money on salaries and then you have no money to reinvest in
your business. Yeah.
And you have to stay ahead of that.
Another key one, as Monique said, but within the we, really, there are separate lanes, if you will, right? So when at the outset, we talked about strengths and weaknesses, right? So though we're working on projects, within that project itself, I may be totally in control of it or in charge of it because that's the area that I'm working on and I'm best at, and vice versa. So though there are all of these components, it doesn't mean that it's 100% involved. No, with the discussion.
Both of you.
That's correct.
That's right.
It's important to clarify that. The discussion would have been, hey, let's talk about me doing this. And then it takes off. It was ready for takeoff. And we decide, okay, now we could be planning a trip later this month to Cuba, for example. So we were both involved. But at the same time, Monique is handling certain aspects of it.
Right.
But I'm not even dealing with it. I'm dealing with a whole other component of our business.
You just get to show up for that one. But
you're with my Cubana,
Show up all stylish, like you did all the hard work for that project. But we know you were working for another project.
I'm taking credit, I did that. Right? No, so seriously, so what happened? So that's important that you recognize that, yes, it's a lot of things going on, but within it,
that's right.
There's there are controls, if you will.
Correct. So really recognizing where your strengths lie.
Yes.
Balancing time. So both of you are not 100% doing everything. Right. So you figure out how to balance that out.
Another great thing too, Abby, is that if you look at it really, it's really not work, though it's a lot of things going on. If you're really passionate about what you're doing, it really takes away a lot of the whatever edge there might be. Doesn't mean that you're not going to be confronted with challenges, but it really it speaks to the fact that, hey, I'm enjoying this. I want to see it really come to fruition. So you're not beating yourself up because it's really an innate quality that's been displayed, if you will.
Gosh.
I also think.
No, go ahead, Monique.
I was going to say, in terms of time management, I think that stress management goes right along with time management, because even though we love what we do and we're committed to the business, the fact is that business is very, very, very stressful. It's stress. It is stress. It is very stressful. So
how do you manage that?
So the way we manage it is that we set aside time to alleviate that stress. In the Caribbean, we say pressure does bust pipe.
It does. 100%. That's not just the Caribbean. You see that too when your pipes freeze and Yeah, there's nobody
The
wants to
experience
go,
in
the
here
pipe's going to
winter.
burst.
Yes. So we are very intentional as we speak about time management. I know a lot of times, especially here in America, where we think that where we set aside time for play and for having fun, we're in a sense almost wasting time that can be used.
So only productivity. It's all about
correct.
What are you doing? What are you doing versus
correct.
are you preserving yourself so that you
Yes.
can do.
Spending time to release that stress keeps you effective. It
Right.
keeps you cutting edge. It keeps you sharp so that you can keep reinvesting your time and talent and creativity in the business.
It's almost the most productive thing you can do. So, I'm hearing so much passion from the two of you, so much passion for the Caribbean, passion for each other, passion for life, passion for happiness, right? Yeah. How do you celebrate each other? How do you find joy? What do you do for fun together?
You just happen to know, and if you stay still enough, you'll know when it's time to take a break and do some things. And we have one of the first things we did when we moved into this community, our home, we made it into, what I would say a fun place. We designed, let's say, parts of the house here where we were thinking, because I love wine, for example. But so we had this massive design for a wine cellar, and we sat down one evening. We said, as much as we drink wine and stuff, we from the Caribbean, specifically Trinidad, Tobago, we are about rum, right? So though we do drink wine and we enjoy, we're about rum. So we sat there and said, something, I'm going to come up with an idea for us. Instead of a wine cellar, we are going to have a rum shop within.
Yes, Abby. He put a rum shop in the house together with.
Wait, how come we liming virtually?
Listen,
when I get invited to the in-person line, that's what I want to know. When am I getting invited to the in-person line?
Rum shop in my
house. Have a whole rum shop in the house, and I stay in my house.
And he has all the walls in galvanized, just like in Trinidad with the wooden shelves.
I come with it.
I love it. I love it. I love it.
But then if we do this, move to the side, you'll see he has his bar.
I see it. Oh, you all have stuff on tap too?
Yes. Now you realize how this man cave is going, right? So you have his rum shop, you have a bar. They have no woman cave in this.
I find that's very gendered because a woman cave in my house might have something on tap. A woman cave in my house might have something on tap. So it was very gendered.
So a lot of times, Abby, it's a great question you asked earlier. So what we'll do, we'll just, come in and we invested in some great rums from around the world. And, so we sit and we have a sip,
and we laugh a lot.
We can scheme, we laugh a lot. There's a lot of laughter, a lot of, teasing, and it's I always use it a lot. The point of nausea, I guess, is that my grandmother, from age 10, something around 10 years old, and was coaching me about life because I was a rough little kid.
It was bad. It was real bad.
There's no such thing as bad children.
And but she always, as part of that, I will forever remember. She said, listen, in this life, always remember it takes two hands to clap. So you may think you're whatever, you're always going to need that other hand to be joyous, to celebrate, to do whatever. So I think it's really important in terms of a life lesson that doesn't matter how smart you are, how beautiful you think you are, how whatever you are, the strength comes from, having that partner, whoever that partner may be, or that family, whatever it is.
And then in terms of how we celebrate each other, back to your point, the laughter is setting aside time for fun. Trips, we take a spontaneous beach trip or an island trip. But I would say the baseline, Abby, is that we don't wait for a specific time to celebrate each other, right?
Yeah.
Because we know, after going through COVID and what so many lessons that we learned from that pandemic is that the one lesson is that you think you have time. You think you have time. So you always put aside, well, Valentine's Day, Luis buys me flowers whenever, right? We don't wait for our anniversary to go for a special dinner. We get up on one morning or we Saturday night, we say, we're going to have dinner. Or we go for dinner on a Monday night. Mm-hmm. Guess what? Restaurants empty, right?
Thank God it's Monday. Let's meet.
Thank God it's Monday. So we do flowers, dinner, whatever to celebrate each other whenever.
Awesome. So, one of the things that continuously is ringing through this conversation is your joy of being Caribbean. And I've seen you all, you host Caribbean events in the community. Just this weekend, you hosted the Red Dress Ball. That dress was stunning, by the way, Monique.
Thank you.
And, you on the, a community council for one of the counties, and, you're just connected to community. So what is one thing that you absolutely love about being Caribbean? What rings true to you about being Caribbean?
I absolutely love the fact that we come from a small place. Mm-hmm. So the region itself is small. Even if you put together all of the populations of all the Caribbean countries, you still may not come to the population of one state in the US, right? Mm-hmm. Particularly for us, Abby, Trinidad and Tobago is 1,980 square miles. It's smaller than the state of Delaware. We come from such a small place, yet we make such big contributions in this huge country. When you think about that and the power of that in itself, it sets my heart on fire every time. And I think that people discount and they don't recognize that when you grew up in a small place, we're on an island, you can cross the island in 2 hours. It's 1.3 million people, and you come to this huge place. You're not intimidated. You have equal to or better than talent and skills and an ability to contribute. That in itself is what inspires us about elevating the Caribbean. Because what we know for sure is that when we elevate brand Caribbean, when we educate people about our region, about the power of our region, about our resources, about the talents of Caribbean people, about our unique value proposition, about our skills, about our intelligence. When you educate people about that, it opens doors for everyone. Someone may be applying to get into an Ivy League school. It happened to me when I first moved here and applied for my first job. And the person who became my boss said, "You're from where?" "Oh, Trinidad and Tobago." My father taught a 3-week program at the University of the West Indies. I accompanied him, and he was a little boy. My boss at the time was like 4 years old. And he says, "I vividly remember the love and the warmth and the embrace with which we were met. People were inviting us, come and hang out at our home. I'm cooking roti, I'm cooking Sunday lunch." And that stuck with him. So here we are now, 30 years later, I'm applying for this job, and he was looking for a specific team member, but a specific type of personality who can lead a team, bring people together, bring some warmth, bring some joy to the office, but also be able to reach a very diverse population from all over the world. And he remembered how diverse and loving and warm the people of Trinidad and Tobago were. And the intelligence of the professionals that he met his father met at the University of the West Indies, that opened a door for me.
That is truly brand Caribbean. Wow.
It is.
It's amazing. No, each of us has this legacy, right? That we don't even realize we're leaving everywhere we go, right? Everywhere we go, there's somebody who is reading that about where you are from and storing that in their mind for their next encounter. That is what creates bias, whether positive or negative.
Sure.
It's about the experiences and the legacy that you've left everywhere you go, you know? Luis, what about you?
Yeah, I think we simply said, just be able to get along. I think I brought that whole attitude, coming here, I came here to play football, and I always a firm believer in sports. I think, sports brings, people together, teams, even though we may be having challenges on the outside, we can put together a team, with, regardless of what our backgrounds are, we perform as a whole. So I think those components, and I think we have a uniqueness about us, the way we speak, the way we conduct ourselves, regardless of one's status, growing up, you're always thought to be mannerly, respectful, polite, whether you may not have had the finest clothing, but you were always clean. There were a lot of those things that I was able to come in, and in some cases, people looked at you as differently at the same time, but you knew you weren't really different. We're all humans, we're all the same. But I think I brought that sort of a mentality and attitude when I came here, and people still, would ask. I'm sure you'll ask the same question. So, how come you haven't lost your accent? How come you haven't done this? How come you haven't done that? Well, you are who you are, and I am what I am, and so much you understand what I'm trying to say or communicate to you. But we are a lot of uniqueness about us that sometimes we as a region, specifically some islands maybe, but we don't really appreciate value that we add.
We overlook it or take it for granted. Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing,
Even with our upbringing, Abby, we share a joke that when I first moved to DC and I walked into the train, I said, as soon as I got into the train, I said, "Good morning." And people grab their pocketbook and they look at me like, and then Louis said to me, "Babe, the people don't do that." I said, "But when you jump in a Maxine Porter Spain,
you had to say good morning. If you don't, you in trouble.
You're huggish.
What's wrong with these people? I walk into an elevator and good morning, but that is more than about being jovial. It is that we were raised with having that basic respect. When you walk in, so now, when I walk into an office, all of my team members know, don't start, because, sometimes people have a way they walk into the office and like, "Oh, Monique,
asking question one time.
I'm like, "Good morning. How are you?"
That's my response in every email.
Yes.
Well, morning.
Meeting, right?
How are you doing?
Exactly. And one of the programs that we teach, we are called in from time to time to teach about customer service and customer care. And, we talk about the basic greeting. People walk in and say, "Morning." Morning is only an acknowledgement of the time of day.
Good morning.
Is a greeting. I know it's morning. I woke up, right? So, but that, stems from we didn't have to study that in a book. We were raised with that. Right. But Abby, I also want to give a little insight tidbit why Luis is so grateful to the Caribbean and Trinidad and Tobago, because he had lived in the US for so many years and then left the airline, came down to Trinidad, and his first day of work at the airport in Trinidad is when we met.
He met you? I know that. I heard this story recently, actually. He saw this amazing wonder and was like, "What is this being? How is this a person?" The Caribbean, yes.
Yeah. That was very fortunate. I left and I never worked in Trinidad. I came here, studied, and then have my first appointment at the airport authority. There was certainly quite an experience. It just goes to show you that we talked about timing earlier on, about business, but in this life, it's all about timing. You just never know where that goodness, if you will, would come from. You know, and the challenges that you experience. That's the other thing too. We grew up and they're challenged.
Yeah.
And it's just how you deal with the challenge, how you coming it. We don't allow things just to keep us down.
Yeah. at all. No, and it's what you talked about as we know about getting along. When, in the US here, we now have this DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion everywhere. And looking at our lives in Trinidad, we lived DEI every single day.
Every day.
You know how many countries celebrate Christmas and Diwali and Eid and Shout out Baptist Day and, recognize all of these different cultures coming together. And I mean, we have our challenges, but in truth, that piece about us, knowing what it means to, at the core, get along.
Yes.
Really
just having you say it, this sends chills for me, really, in how beautiful that is.
It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful. And Abby, I also want to say that our approach to life is a very all-embracing approach, right? And if you look at, Luis spoke earlier about things that we take for granted. Here in the US, when you want to have dinner with someone, they give you a list of dates. I remember when I first moved here, we met some people at church. They said, we would love to get to know you guys better. Here are some dates. And they said, we were in July, and they said, how about October 10th? I'm like, I don't even know if I'm going to like these people
next week.
What are you doing tonight?
No, let's go and get some drinks.
Right.
Have a rum shop downstairs. Come true.
We take that for granted. That is about all we know we have is right now.
Yeah,
you're talking 100%. About dinner. We don't know if you're going to be alive in October. Let's have dinner right now. Let's line right now. Let's laugh together right now.
Right.
And as a part of that is the levity with which we take life. So, Trinidadians or Caribbean people, if the road has a hole in it, we talk about, oh boy, look at that hole, boy. That's a real big pothole, right? And we keep laughing. There's no protest around the road having potholes, right? It's all about how we make light of things which some people may find a bit inappropriate at times, but I think it is really our way of saying, look, all we have is right now.
Yeah.
Not that serious.
This could almost be a 3-episode series, right?
Well, it just needs to lime again.
Our number two. But
next time we're gonna be right here.
when you think about when you think about the Caribbean community here in the US and how Carry Beats and Real Happy Vibes have received support to grow. What are you appreciative of? What are you thankful of? And, second part to that question, how could the community support you more?
It's an excellent question. We are exceedingly appreciative of the support that we have received from the community. When we're in Union Market, we're at a festival, we're at an event, we're catering, we are asked to deliver a presentation. And we walk into a room and we hear a Caribbean voice, and the love and warmth that we receive from the Caribbean community has just been exceeding and abundant and beyond our wildest expectations. We've received a lot of support, and we are grateful for that every day. And that is why we are so committed to giving back to our community. But I have to say, Abby, that we have also received a lot of support from people who have never even been to an island in the Caribbean. They hear our accent, they feel the love with which we embrace and receive them. And they're like, you know what? I've never been to the islands, but just from hearing you and feeling the warmth that you bring in your music and the way you've embraced me, I want to experience more.
Awesome.
So we're very grateful to people who are not from the Caribbean, from other parts of the world, from here in the US, but just love and embrace and receive us with open arms.
And that's key, sometimes we get into our own little hole, if you will, right? And all about, but for us, it's really important that we realize that the the experience that is not only to be shared with those that you grew up with or familiar with. Mm-hmm. The experience is really for those, like for example, with Trinidad and Tobago, right? So for down there, it's important that for someone that has never been there, just heard about it, they were on campus with someone from Trinidad they had a great experience with. And we've had people come up and say, I've been hearing about this dish, right? And then you walk them through what the dish is all about. So it's not only about eating the dish or the roti or whatever it is you've prepared, but having them walk away, not just hopefully enjoying it, but having some ideas to its roots and the experience from that meat or that dish, So that's what we do a lot of, is to educate, and at the same time having fun with it.
Yeah.
And a lot of these things, we've done it on our own. We've had collaborations with the Embassy of France. We've done some carnival things with them here. So we do a lot of things like that, so that at the end of the day, people are realizing that, hey, I need to go to Trinidad and Tobago. I need to go visit whatever that island is. And so we go great lengths to do that. It's not only just obviously through the food, the music, our personality. I mean, you're just you, Abby. I mean, you can walk in anywhere. You travel a lot. When you travel, people are intrigued. They want to, where's your accent from? Where are you from? Right?
Yeah.
And
it's a great point, because I think what you're saying is that the question that you asked is really about what role, what kind of support have we received, and then what can Caribbean people do to support us. So I think recognizing that whatever field of endeavor or sphere of influence that you're in, that you are, just by nature of who you are, you're an ambassador to the region or of the region. And that ambassadorship can actually be monetized, because when people experience a Caribbean person, it influences how they receive products on the shelves, how they receive us when we walk into a room for a contract, when somebody goes for a job. So just being a good ambassador to brand Caribbean is how the community can support us. But I want to talk, Abby, to the business of Caribbeanness, because it's important that we realize that, if we're serious about this thing, we have to understand how to monetize it. When we talk about the influence, or we talk about the support that we need, we really need support from the region, not just from the diaspora here, because I really believe that the diaspora is doing what it's can. Of course, there are areas of improvement, but, they do come out, support, buy tickets, whatever it might be. We need the support from the region. We need that when we call and we say we have an opportunity here to get 1 million blister packs into Costco, that people answer the phone.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
We need it when we say we have a contract opportunity, but we need certain expertise from this country, that people respond to an email. So the business discipline is what we need from our region. We need that support, that we get the calls answered, that we get the emails responded to, that we get that kind of support, because we are committed to taking the region and everything that comes out of the region where it needs to be. But the region has to play its role in terms of answering the call, answering the phone, getting to the meetings, and doing what needs to be done. Because business in North America, we don't wait on anybody. If you don't turn up, somebody else gets the opportunity.
Somebody else is going to get that call.
Yeah. And it's back to the two hands to clap.
Yeah. 100%.
The support.
Absolutely.
Gosh, so this has been so rich.
Yeah.
And I mean, we've gotten into some deep conversations, holding the Caribbean accountable, learning about the fact that, you can't just build a business on what you like. Business is about who your audience is, who are you trying to reach, and what do the numbers say, in addition to what's the quality that you bring to the market. So that's huge. And, having values around philanthropy and just being an ambassador to your roots and staying unique to who you are. Such a rich legacy you all are creating. But I want to understand, who has the better style between the two of you?
Oh my God. Listen.
You're gonna make trouble, you know. Yeah.
Because I mean, when I see both of y'all are extremely stylish, right?
Who spends more money on clothing? And just so you know, somebody who is not me, but if you call your name, I will whistle. Somebody who is not me has clothes in 3 bedrooms in this house. Okay. Yes,
No,
3 closets. 3 closets.
Somebody's name who begins with an L.
Big
Not-
closet. Correct.
Got it. Just to be clear.
I told you I grew up.
Who spends more on their clothing?
Yeah, I told you I grew up in a home. You know, my mother was a great designer, and I grew up with 5 beautiful sisters who are very fashionable. You know, so my brother and I had no other choice but to, you know, bring up the rear with our short pants. You know, they get different colors, so we look a little different. You know, but you know, I think it's just who we are. You know, we with all of the beautiful things that was said on both ends from yourself and Monique, you know, we also have a sense of style.
We dress. Caribbean people, we dress.
When you walk into a room, people notice the 2 of you.
People notice us.
You are stylish and you look fantastic together.
Thank
Full
you.
kudos. And what about, you know, I heard Luis talked about, you know, crafting new recipes for these sauces, but who's the better chef? Who's the better cook?
Well, you know, when we first met, Monique actually cooks well, but I enjoy cooking. So I do.
Abby, he did not buy cotton bag. Okay, I told him from day one that cooking I am not.
Yeah, I realized early in the game that dinner for Monique and for us would be a knock on the door. You know, the delivery guy saying, "Hey, yeah." No, but we are.
I also said to him, I do not do wildlife and camping. So he always says, you know, roughing it for you is champagne in a plastic glass. Yes, it is. I do not do camping. No.
I try to encourage him to do something like that. I did take a skiing recently.
It didn't work out.
I love you. No, but it's really cooking. I do not mind cooking. Yeah, so I'll say probably do 90% of it. Yeah.
99.
Who's the better dancer? You know, Caribbean people, when they walk into a room, who is the better dancer?
The better dancer is soca, right? And his sisters will agree to this. But with the Venezuelan background, you know, he's an excellent Latin dancer.
Okay. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah. We have fun. Monique is we both have fun dancing. Yeah. But she really does. She's more of a soca.
I love soca and dancers.
Yeah. Jump up and wave. You know. But we do a Latin.
In fact, sometimes we put on music and we just come down here and
on our date night.
Dance and
so we have our date night.
Living in the moment.
We have a whole all-inclusive fete home with just 2 of us. And we jump up. They said when we finish, we sweating, you know, you will swear we play mass. We jump upstairs and that's it. Fete over.
Date night. Date night is important. When you talked earlier, and I wrap up online, but she talked about the communication piece. But, you know, in relationships, you know, you meet, if it goes on, you get married, and then there's a settled period there. Mm-hmm. But sometimes we lose sight of really what made you go from meeting to that next step. Mm-hmm. Some of those things, once you become a couple, we tend to forget, you know, just get aside. So those dates that eventually led to marriage, some of those fun things should be maintained to some extent.
Continuously have that fun.
Yeah, so so we have date nights, you know, so it doesn't always mean that we go to a fancy restaurant because we do eat out and we do eat in quite often. We have our own fancy dinners and then we get dressed some evenings and we come downstairs and have, you know, whether it's champagne or whatever we decide to have, and play our music. chat,
one set in your house,
and have
right?
yeah, you know, and those are the little things that
Definitely.
keep the spark, if you will. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. I love it. So, you know, we have to wrap up sometime, right?
Yeah.
You all have any last things you want to share with the audience?
Go ahead.
Ooh, I have a lot of last things. I don't like to use the word last, because I always find it so
We
funny.
coming back. We coming back. We will line
coming back
again.
a lot.
We
But
will
I
line
will
again,
say,
and it
I
will
will
be
say that,
in the rum shop.
yes,
We will have
in the rum
an
shop,
in-person
right?
line.
In the rum shop, we're going to do a rum tasting. He does a really good rum tasting. But you'll either have to spend the night or take Uber, because when he's finished with those, you definitely can't drive. So, I would say, Abby, that I would end with where we started with, at the very beginning of the line, about the real happy vibes and the joy of life. And we just have to be so intentional about making sure that we self-regulate how we deal with life in terms of our emotions and our thoughts. And it took us a while, we are in this, we didn't talk about the learning process, but we are very much in a learning process. We read a lot. We listen to a lot of, YouTube and different authors and motivational speakers, because we understand that what enters our minds really is demonstrated in how we live life and how we deal with people and with business and with each other. And so my recommendation, and this is what I want to share with everyone, is that love is really the center of everything. And that once we focus on love and we focus on happiness and unity and joy, that life really does fall into place. It really, really does. And I'm not saying you don't have to have a structure and a strategy for success. All of that is important. But that baseline of waking up in the morning and knowing that your heart is full of love, that God is with us at all times, and God is love, and he made us to be love. Once we start at that baseline and we deal with each other with love, and we approach meetings and business and everything with love, that everything really does work out. Yeah. It really, really does.
Yeah, I'll just add quickly, I think, we, especially as a region, and I guess it can expand to really everyone, but more so as it relates to us, it's really important that we recognize and respect and trust, that we are different, we have differences, but that difference is really what makes us who we are, and therefore, instead of using the difference or as a negativity, it really should be joyous, celebrated, because we are who we are, and there's nothing better than a true expression of loving you for who you are, respecting you for who you are, trusting you for who you are. So I think that's important. Very important. We understand that. Yeah, you're from Trinidad, one from Jamaica, Guyanese, Barbados, whatever it is.
One love, man. One love.
Just say it, just express it, and really trusting it, and that difference, and me wanting to know about the difference. So instead of creating gaps, we ought to be about bridging gaps.
Oh. Phenomenal. It reminds me of a statement that we use in training, and we learned I do a lot of diversity, equity, and inclusion with public health, but is that concept of the melting pot, which is really so beautiful. The melting pot doesn't recognize diversity, right? The melting pot is a fondue. Everything is mixed together and looks all the same. But who we really are is a pilau, is a pilaf, is the tomato, the corn, the everything mixed in together, the peas, the chicken, we're seeing those chunks of diversity. That is who we really are as a people. And it's important to taste the difference between the chicken and the peas. And the
there you go.
You don't want it all mushed together.
No.
It tastes good like that.
Yeah.
And there is innovation when we recognize what each of us brings to this space, you know?
Celebrate that individuality.
Yeah, so hopefully we'll get this message among us here, right?
Celebrate that diversity. Gosh, it's been such a pleasure chatting with you all. I've learned so much, especially some of those pieces about business and relationship, and how to navigate and find balance there. You all are truly transforming the way that we brand Caribbean here in the DMV and I guess globally too, right? Because Real Happy Vibes does not just have to be regional.
That's right.
An amazing job. I strive to be like the two of you in my own unique way, of course. I'm looking forward to.
We admire you, Abby, and all you have been doing.
Some beautiful things,
Beautiful
Abby.
things.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Looking forward to the rum line. That is what I
really Stay still. Seriously, look out for the invite.
Yeah, I'm gonna take a sip of I have the techie biscuits. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah, techie biscuit.
Yeah, I have my techie biscuits sitting down there. I'm looking forward to it. But I said I'm not supposed to be drinking until after Lent. So next week I'm jumping into my techie biscuits. Thank you all so much for chatting with me. And thanks for having me in the line, Monique.
Yeah.
Just the first of many.
Thank you so much, Abby.
Thank you both.
Thanks so much. Thank you for joining us in this very special line on Liming with Monique. Stay tuned for our next episode on Carib Nation TV.